Hello everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm going to try to press the little button here and bring myself up. Hey, there I am, Richard Carlton here. So this is Calvin. Calvin is there along with Margaret. So Margaret, say hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? Are we good today? Is Calvin still here? We lost Calvin.
Good
Calvin?
afternoon. I'm still here.
Calvin is still here. He's so beautiful. Such a beautiful. So today is an interesting conversation. It's partly strategery, partly technical. Calvin, we're talking about records in the FileMaker platform today, right? I'm just going to jump into our content. Records in the FileMaker platform. And the idea is one of the things we always talk about is, because the road to hell is paved with bad decisions when you do things. It's kind of like if you pulled up in front of a state trooper in the United States, that they call the guys who patrol the highways, and mostly they're looking for drunk drivers and people speeding and stupid shit like that. But if you pulled up in front of a state trooper, law enforcement, and then you do donut in front of them, and then you go down the freeway, that's a poor life choice, right? As a general rule, unless your car is really fast, right? So that's a poor life choice. It'll probably end poorly for you. Deleting records out of FileMaker is probably a very similar sort of choice. You don't want to do it. There's a million reasons why. So we want to talk to Calvin about that today and explain to you why you don't want to antagonize law enforcement, why you don't want to delete records out of your FileMaker file. It's the same kind of thing, right? Calvin, what say you?
So there, by default, FileMaker has this delete button. And when you delete that, there's not a reverse delete by default. Once it's gone, that's permanent. You have to run to a backup to find it. And historically, or in my experience, there's always a reason to keep that record around. And sometimes you'll want to go back to it. You'll wonder, like, oh, I'm not working with this person anymore in my CRM. I'm just going to delete the record because I don't. Well, what if they come back? And you need to have a history of what interactions you had with that person, and so you want to keep those records. And then when you get into certain industries like medicine, you can't delete the records. You have to keep onto them so you can reference them and see what the record used to look like in the past. And in that case, you're dealing with audit logs as well. Now, so this demo that I have is kind of two different ways I've looked at saving records instead of deleting them, or ways to delete records but being able to also have it, be able to go back to it. And the use case for this was there's a couple different clients that I've had that ran into this problem. One was the administrator had a habit of deleting important records. And the main person who made sure all the data stayed right decided that they didn't want their boss to be able to delete records. And so we changed the delete button so that instead of deleting, it would just hide the record. So the boss got the warning, are you sure you want to delete this record? They'd say yes, and they'd delete it. And then the record would disappear. But on the back end, the person who was taking care of the app, they could look at the list of all the records that were deleted and say, okay, this one really needs to be deleted, and these we need to restore those or at least save them in the background.
Okay, so you want to show us your screen then, and is that what you want to do, or because right now we see your beautiful face? Yeah. So
okay, so here is a so I'm going to give an example of that first example first that we're talking about where we're just hiding records. So let's create a new record, and this is going to be, we're going to say John Smith, he's at RCC, the job title is, maybe he's a manager, and we'll put this, let's make this professional, put this on some information here. All right. And so we've got this notes area. So this is the example where I'm going to show we can delete records, but only have it hidden in the background. So met with John today. meeting went well. Last meeting didn't go well. Okay, so we've got this history of this meetings with John, and the last meeting didn't go well. It went so badly, the boss just wants to delete this record so we don't ever have to see it again and be reminded about how bad that meeting was. Okay, so I've got a message that says, are you sure you want to delete this record? I can cancel, but I'm going to say delete. Now, you might think that it's probably important that we have all of those. You'll see that we went from 3 records here to now we only have 2. And so it's probably important that we see that record. So somebody else, whoever's taking care of the app, can go into the notes, and I've got this Find Deleted Records button. So here we've got a list of notes that were deleted. So here's a note that was assigned to Johnny Appleseed. It's just called another note, and I can delete it and really delete it, remove it completely from the app. And maybe I want to do that in this case. And so now that one's actually gone. Now this actually is an important note, and we need to keep it. So I can select Restore Record. But before I do that, let's just look. So we've got 3 notes here. Meeting went well. Last meeting didn't go well. And let's go back to notes. And I'm going to say Restore Record. And so now it's restored. The delete button disappeared. If we go back over to the contact details, it's back there. And so what's going on here is actually, this is probably the simplest way to hide something. I just have this on the notes. I just have a flag delete field. And all that delete, it's giving you a warning as if it's deleting. So you feel like you have that it's finalized. But in the background, we're just setting a flag field. And then the filter on this is just hiding it. And sometimes I've actually built it where you can do administrators will have a button to say show hidden records or show deleted records. And all the main records will be visible, and all the deleted records will appear, but then it'll be grayed out, so you know that one was deleted, and they can decide even from the same portal whether to restore it or not. And so this is more a matter of keeping the records clean. And so when we glance at this, we see the data we want. We're not losing data by people getting crazy with the delete button. I think we do have a relevant question from Ruben. He says, I assume you don't implement archiving on every table in your app, but only the tables that are with important information. And I guess you're right. The ones that are important enough that you would want to archive it, you can do that.
Let's start with 2 things. First off is that there is, okay, back up. So let's talk about this. Step 1 is that should you even allow the person to delete the record in the first place? Okay, that's the first question you must ask. I'm not a big fan of custom functions or custom menus, but come over here and click on that for me. I am a big fan of putting the brakes on stupid. Okay, and so a lot of times Nick had a live stream with custom menus, right? You guys remember that? It was a big major thing. Hey, Calvin, what do you do? Okay.
Oh, I was going to show that.
Go. Show starting point. Show starting point. That's fine. So I think starting point comes with is this a special starting point? Is this yours? Or what is this?
Yeah, this is one that I've been using for demos, I guess. But the records.
Well, you had a whole progress bar on the start, right? So I don't know what else this thing is, but yes, because normally there's no progress bar on the starting point. So, right?
Right. This one that I've just been using to demo the add-ons. It was just the one on my desktop.
Fine. Okay, go ahead. So go to records. If we're in preference, can we go into records right now? We can, and we can delete records, right? So I'm not a big fan on custom menus for a wide variety of reasons. However, it's fairly easy to remove a couple items. So let's say that we want to create a custom menu right now, and remove these items right here so the person cannot delete the record. That is the first step. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's just take this step first,
Okay.
and let's just remove that.
Say
okay, and obviously,
File,
yep,
Manage, Custom Menus.
yep, and then we have to
And
create
then we'll
one.
say
Yep.
Create.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just call this one No Delete.
Yep.
And we'll go add.
So for Labo 404, there's probably 6 or 8 different ways of doing this. I'm just going to start with some basics here because if I don't show this, people will ask why not. So what we've done here is we've created a new file menu. Actually, we don't. Actually, you could leave them all. Couldn't you leave them all and just change the one?
Yeah, you have to add each one separately.
Oh, you do?
So I'm going to call this one Records No Delete. And so I'm going to remove Delete Record and remove Delete All. Mm-hmm. So now it goes Duplicate, go to Record Next. And I'll select that one. And normally I would go through and make sure I had file and everything in there. But if I change to my custom menu, No Delete, on the records, now we have no
Why don't you
option.
put the rest of those back in there, and then what we'll do is we'll give this file to Margaret real quick and let her give it away to everyone. But the point is once again, the custom menus are a giant pain in the ass to set up and do. And you're seeing this here because it's a little counterintuitive. And then Nick goes through it. Nick fights his way through it, which is nice. Yeah, so what we're doing is we're taking the other menus that they have and basically kind of duplicating all the menus that we have. So the idea is to restrict the delete is the first thing. Then once you have the delete restricted, then you can decide how else you want to deal with the record deletion. If you want to mark them as canceled, you want to suppress them, you want to hide them. Really the two techniques are to basically suppress and hide the record, or go ahead and have a scripted process where you delete it, but it actually moves it to another table and then it deletes it. But you're going to have to basically suppress the menus for this to happen, right? So Calvin is busily still banging away on this. Are we almost there, Calvin? A little bit more?
Almost. So here I just had to see which ones were missing.
Anyway,
yeah.
Yeah, so there is one of Calvin's sample files. So in that sample file, did you restrict the menu set at all, Calvin, or did you not?
I didn't change anything in the menu set.
Yeah,
no.
so this is another kind of like part B of your sample file. So if you want to go ahead and jump over and finish this up, Calvin.
Okay. So here we'll go back to the no delete, and we'll see on records.
Yeah. So then we've hidden it, right? So then now, of course, you could say, well, why don't we just leave delete in there, and instead of it deleting, it runs a script. Yes, you can do that too if you want to learn how to do that. We have Margaret can find it's like a 2 or 3 day extravaganza of Nick doing custom menus. We're not going to go there. The point is for people to think about this, right? Because the first thing to do is if you turn off the delete up here and you don't have a delete button over here. If you have a delete button over here, then you're done. You're all good, right? But the delete button isn't here, right? Are we on the restricted found set right now, Calvin?
We are, yep.
And notice it doesn't remove it over here. See that right there? That is a certification test question. I guarantee it. It's like if
it is grayed out.
It's grayed out,
So
and that is the correct answer on the certification test. It'll still be there, but it'll be grayed out, right? That kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So understand that if you remove it from up here, it's still in here, which is really dumb. It's grayed out, which means you can't get to it. And if you have a button over here that runs a script, then you can actually decide logically whether you want to delete it or you want to move it first. So Ken's asking a question, he says more of an audit question, but what about updating the documents in a container? Does Calvin have a way to save the original doc when a new doc is put in the container? Okay, that's a totally separate topic, right? So I'm going to duck that question right now, right? If someone deletes data in a field, right? We're not talking about deleting data in the field. We're talking about deleting the entire record, right?
If that's an audit log.
That's an audit log. So. We've done audit log sessions, I know, and we're not. Hey, Ken, it's not a 2-second answer. Go back, Margaret, if you could help us go back and find some of the audit log demos with Calvin and post those live stream links there and on all all those as well.
Custom menus. Yeah, I'll look all that.
Calvin, if you want to go ahead and close this file, is this the same file that we had before? Is this the file that you gave Margaret?
It is the same file, yeah.
Ah, okay.
We can share it at the end in case we make any other changes.
Yeah, we'll call it, we'll name it Rev2 or V2 on it, right? So this is the file right now that you're going to download doesn't have the custom menu suppressed. So why don't you keep going through your demo, Calvin? But the first thing is to stop people, stop deleting, right? And the way you do that is you turn it off and they can't get to it, right? So
Right. Yeah. Did we have any other questions about deleting from the portal? Specifically, in this case, we're not actually deleting any records. We're just flagging them to be hidden, and we either can just suppress them and leave them in the background, and the administrator can look them up if they ever need to, or we can have some method for users to go back there and see what data was removed. Were there any questions about that? And if not, we'll move on to the
There were three simultaneous questions all popped. So Oregon Dean, Agent Chevy, and Canberra. You got Discord open on the side screen. You can see those. Agent Chevy, in terms of reporting, we need to consider filtering out flagged records, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. In that case, one of the things that we'll do is if there's a I don't want to have to worry about records that shouldn't be counted in a report. So in that case, I'll actually use a different method where I have a secondary table. And so let's go ahead and look at that. So in this particular app, I have two contact tables. One's contacts and one's contacts deleted. And in the fields, these are identical. The fields are the same. The names match. And when I want to remove something from the data set so it won't mess up with my numbers and reporting, or if I don't want somebody to be able to perform a find and have that record appear, I will put it. We can put it into another table. So I'm going to select. We're here on John Smith. I'm going to select this delete button. And this is going to run a custom script. Are you sure you want to delete this record or this contact? And I can say cancel or delete. I'm going to go ahead and say delete. And something went wrong. So it didn't delete. And so let me go ahead and open my script.
Oh, I know why.
Why is that?
Your script didn't run as an admin, right? Remember, delete's disabled.
That could be. That's a good point. So let me go ahead and
run as an administrator. Run your script, right?
We're
talking about scripts.
I didn't import. So let's go ahead and say delete contact, and I'm going to say grant full access privileges. We'll see if that fixes it.
Yeah, I'll see that. Run it again.
That wasn't the first thing I thought, but let's try that one. It still didn't do it.
Okay.
You know what might be happening? Let's just open the script debugger. I renamed the file after I worked on this. Cancel. And it might be something else. Okay. So I'm going to say, it's going to ask me. I'm going to say I want it deleted. It's going to save the record, open a new window, and here I'm isolating the record, and then I'm importing. So there was a problem with the import. So let me go ahead.
I'm not sure why you're doing. Oh, you're doing an import. Oh, yeah.
Import to another table. That way, I don't have to set fields.
Variable file path. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go to File, Manage, External Data Sources, and here's my problem. My external data source has the wrong file name because I changed the file.
Well,
let's go ahead and save that.
So you've hard coded it. Why can't you use it? Well, that's right. You can't. Can you use a variable as a file source in a data source? I think you can. Starting with FileMaker.
I think you can. That wasn't what I was focusing on here.
I know. But it's really so. Everyone's watching this. This demo is really brittle. Do not rename the demo. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and then theoretically, if you are putting this in your app, it should be hosted. And this wouldn't be a problem referencing itself. Okay, so let's try this one more time. I'm going to say delete. Yeah. And it says, are you sure you want to delete? I'm going to say delete. And it still didn't work. let's try this one more time. I should have just changed the name back. So it still says files missing.
What's your data viewer say?
Let me just select that one.
Yeah, you have to change it in 2 spots, right? I mean,
yeah. So so let me just check the specify order, and that looks good. We're matching names. Just to show you this, since we're in here, one thing I do not have checked is perform auto enter options during the import. And the reason for that is that we would want to preserve that primary key. And if we have those auto enter calculations run, then we won't get the then that what is it called? The primary key will be reset and mess things up. Okay, 3rd time's the charm. I'm going to say delete. Are you sure? And there, it deleted.
yeah.
So now we're looking at Johnny Appleseed and not that other record.
What you can do, for those of you, if you want a more reliable, if you can go up under File, just go to File and go to External Data Sources. You could put it, it could be, go ahead and edit that data source. It can be a variable in there. Down there, see that? And that's actually, this is another certification test question where you can use variables like this, okay? You could put a variable in there. So you could say, set the variable to the name of the file, and then whatever that variable name is, $file, right? And then you put $file down here. And so by you setting it, it's dynamic, it's not hard-coded. Historically, I hated this process of doing imports like this because they were so fragile. And Calvin just demonstrated why they're so horrible and once again, I've been doing this now 33 years, older than most of my engineers, for more years than they've been alive. And this sucked because they added this $dollar variable thing in 17 or 18. It's a fairly new addition
pretty
into
new.
here. And so that helps it be less fragile. So just understand, whenever you're hard coding a file name, if it's on the server, yeah, it's less likely to be monkeyed with, but yeah, you get the idea. So we deleted out of one area, we import another area. So this solves the problem that Oregon Dean said, well, if you leave the file in the same table, then you have to always remember to omit it, right, from reporting, right? So the question is one, you want to restrict access so people can't delete it. That's one. Two, where are you going to stick the record that you don't want to see anymore? Is it in a different table? So, which I kind of like that because it doesn't break reporting and other things like that. Or do you leave it in the same table and you just make sure to omit it from the found set, right?
Yeah, and I've found that for a primary table like this one, I would rather delete it and move the data to another table that's just an archive table, and then delete the record from the primary table. While in child tables like the notes, it's pretty easy to hide those records so they don't cause confusion.
Okay, so
if we want something hidden.
Yeah, so Labdo says it's not easy to add new fields with that process. Yeah, you have to make sure
it is a consideration. Yeah, so that's something you definitely want to think of, and it's not. I mean, the places that I have built this, it wasn't really simple apps. They were very complicated with a lot of people using them and interacting with them, and the data was really important, where they didn't want it to be lost if somebody monkeyed around and changed some record. Yeah. And one of the problems that they kept running into was people would right click and see the delete record option and think, I don't know why they would think that was a great way to remove records or information from the current record, but they would delete it thinking that they were deleting child records or deleting information from a field, and it would delete the entire record, and then they would panic because now their information's lost.
If we turn, is delete on or off right now? Is it on or off right now? Is it on?
It's on right now because we're in a different layout.
Okay, go back and turn it off for me.
Yeah, so if we're over here, let's change to the no delete.
Okay, then right click.
And
Yeah, it's gone.
It's not there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I wanted to make sure that was actually happening. So Stu has a really good comments. Let's take a moment and talk to our wise people that watch us. Stu says, to summarize the delete conversation. Of course, now I just flew off the screen. To prevent deleting, you may need more than one of these. Custom menu to remove the delete, custom security privilege set. Stu, yes and yes. Next consideration. Add a button or script or to hide the record. Yes. Yeah, you can hide it or a button. Okay, so it's half of it, right? So first we don't delete it, we control it. So step one is we must stop people from misbehaving. So don't do donuts in front of the cops, give them a middle finger, and challenge them to a race on the freeway, okay? State troopers, don't do that, okay? They don't like it. Step one, don't be a bad person. Step two, once you've targeted the record, how are you going to suppress it without deleting it? Are you going to move it to another table, or are you just going to literally hide it out of the found set with that kind of suppression, right? And that's where you have to make a decision. Hiding it's one way, moving it is another way. Really, the two ways of handling it, right? Make sense? Organdine says, is there a trick to virtually merge two tables, i.e. see all table and virtual? That's a SQL trick, Organdine. It's not something that FileMaker normally does without a relationship, right? You could do the virtual merge with a SQL statement, I think, Calvin, right? But without.
Yeah, you could do a couple SQL statements to combine them into a virtual list and browse them, but I'm not sure the use case for that, because if they're deleted, you don't want to see them together, and then if you want it back, then you'd want to restore it.
Okay, so Agent Chevy asked the question, of course, the next logical progress is that, hey, deleting one is easy. What if I want to delete 5,000 records? Well, then you're going to have to loop this thing 5,000, or you have to, or you have a found set. You identify a found set that you want to delete, and you have a delete found set or something like that. And then it runs a script that just kind of loops and works on that one way or the other, right? Or you PSOS it, you dump it off on PSOS, the server does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the neat thing about using the import method as opposed to set variable, go to layout, create new record, set field. Using import, you could do an entire found set and then delete the entire found set. Generally, we don't want to do mass deletes, and even if I allow my clients to delete records, I'll remove the delete all, because it's just too much of a risk to say delete all records, especially when most people I work with have mission critical apps that if they wake up the next morning and all their records are gone, it's a big problem.
Hey, so Scott Kane and Oregon Dean are talking about OData. OData is not something I've spent a lot of time personally playing with. I do know that there's a handful of advanced developers, even at RCC, that play with that. Calvin, have you done anything with OData?
I have not, no.
Okay, so it's kind of, the kind of stuff that you would play with. We need to get, Jacob Taylor is on vacation next week, but we need to get probably him into a conversation and figure out if we want to do some presentations on OData. The problem is that it's kind of like one of those things. It's like Active Directory. It's kind of supported in FileMaker, but then kind of not really, right? It's only certain kinds of Active Directory are supported under certain conditions. And OData has kind of been one of these things that was supported, then not supported, then they add the support back in. And now I guess it's OData as a source is available if you're using Linux Server, but how many people are using Linux Server? Almost no one. I mean, people started to use it, but how many people are using it immediately? Because they were using CentOS, and now you have to rebuild it in Ubuntu, and then there was 19.3.1. Yesterday, Claire shipped 19.3.2. For those of you probably aware of that, but there were a lot of little stupid bugs that popped up, and that Claire's was not aware of, that they didn't fix. David says, in your solution, how do you know who deleted the record, right?
Yeah, great point there. So in this case, when I select let's go back to, so here we are, we've got this new note, and I'll select delete note, and then I'll go over to my list of notes and say find deleted. I keep a note in there a little comment deleted by admin, and then I give the date and timestamp, or the timestamp for that. Because if you have somebody that's misbehaving repeatedly, sometimes it's a one-time accident. Sometimes it's repeated, and they need to be educated on how to use the app, or maybe it's
that was so rated G. Oh, maybe they have to be re-educated on how to use the app. Oh.
But it could also be a design flaw in how the app is working. And so kind of like that right click that showed the delete option, let's go back over. So since I have this right click where I can show the delete, that might be something we want to suppress anyway. And maybe having addressing these right click options would be something we'd want to address in the design of the app. And if a lot of people are making the same mistake, it's probably a problem with the app and the design. If one person's making the same mistake over and over, they probably just need to be, we need to see why they're making that mistake.
All right, so it looks like Ruben is answering some off-topic questions, which is fine. I have more of a constrained conversation. I just can't, unless we have an open Q&A, I try not to really take way off-topic questions, just because it's easy to get down the weeds real fast. So David, okay, we covered that. Brutterman. David had a little bit more of a question there. It says, you have a field who deleted or is a reference.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by reference, but it's a field. It's just, in this case, it's called comment, and I just put who deleted it and the date and time for that. And and in the restore record, you would want to clear that out so it's back to normal.
I mean, the reality of this is that, we spend a lot of time talking about this stuff here, and going through solutions and building solutions. But this is kind of one of those things that you build it for yourself, then you have 5 or 6 people using it in the office, and then at some point you have to kind of go in there and put, restrictions on what they can do. It's kind of like the analogy is like when you're, have you ever seen when they have 5-year-olds bowling, go to the bowling alley with mom and dad, and they're going to go bowl balls and hit the pins. And they put these rubber baby bumper things in the gutter. So when the ball hits the gutter, it bounces back in so the kid doesn't get all disillusioned and cranky because their ball goes in the gutter every time. So it's kind of like guardrails to keep customers or keep your users out of trouble. And this is very much a very important guardrail kind of conversation. The same kind of conversation, if you go to Starting Point, go and open up Starting Point. We have the same kind of guardrail kind of moment because we have this home screen with preferences. And there's it's kind of a home screen, but it's driven by like a single record kind of deal. So this is, you can't really see it, but if he shows a status area right here, you'll see that there's should be one preference record right here. And so what we don't want is people deleting that or adding other records to it, things like that. And we don't super restrict it down because it's kind of Starting Point. Once again, we always tell people it's not completely done. And the reason it's not done is that every business is somewhat different, right? We all know this. I mean, Oregon Dean does stuff totally different than Ken, different than Ruben, different than David, different than Agent Chevy, etc. So the point is that you need to think about where you don't want people adding or deleting records and controlling that. And in Starting Point, we just simply kind of hide the status area and we kind of try to educate people. But yeah, I mean, it's going to get to the point where we're going to put guardrails on to keep the cars from going off the road, right? And people from doing stupid shit with a car. If you give someone a keys to a car and a steering wheel and a gas pedal, they will do stupid shit. It's just like they just will. They just will. It's impossible for them not to do stupid things with it, right? And so you've got to almost be like the designer of the car that keeps it from crashing. How do you design if you're a Toyota designer for Toyota making trucks, how do you design it so someone doesn't drive the truck off the road and kill everyone? How do you do that? It's impossible, right? Right? So, yeah. So here's Oregon. This is Ken over here, right? Yeah, here we go. All right, here we go. Wham. So just so you guys know, This happened to me a week ago. I landed a helicopter like where this gal is here, and over here was this pole, and the guy's driving his airplane down the road. He's watching the helicopter as I'm shutting it off, and he drives his airplane into a light pole and puts a huge, damages the wing horribly so on his airplane. Then he decided to take off and fly it anyway. So this happens. I saw this happen. Dave Henderson was with me. It blew his mind that someone would do that in front of God and everyone, right? It's like, oh my gosh. So
David Angel has a good question. He says, well, where do you store deleted is a clone file? In this demo, it's all in one file, and I have a archive table that's a contact delete. It's just moved to a separate table. But I have had some clients that their business model is on a seasonal kind of schedule. So when the season starts, maybe it starts every summer, every fall, they don't care about any of the data from the previous year. And so they will take a backup and save that for perpetually in some folder somewhere. But for the live master file, they'll save a clone of the file and then start out fresh for the new season, because whatever business they're in, they really don't care about legacy data. And if they ever need it for some kind of reason,
that is so rare. Most of the time, people don't want to deal with the legacy data, but they have people come up and say, yeah, I'd like the same snowboard that you had from last year, and they have no way of looking that up for customer service. I whenever someone says that, I have to, and I'm a consultant and they're the customer, I kind of nicely interrogate them to make sure that's really, 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 really the case, right? Because almost invariably they do it because they don't want to deal with all the records, right? But it has value. They don't know what to do with it, so they just delete everything every year, right? So.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that was never my recommendation on those things. That those were kind of their business models before I was in the conversation.
Yeah. So.
David has an interesting question again. He said, "I thought it was a different file because you were importing. You can import to a different into your same file as long as it's a different table, I believe." And so, yeah, you can import from records from one table to another, and that this demo is actually doing that.
Yeah, I mean, David, you have to look at this, and because of the controls with that, I hate doing the import personally. And Nick would be the kind of guy to do the import. I hate it because once again, it was always historically fragile for me. I would be the guy that would write a script I would write a bunch of values to a bunch of variables. And then I would jump over to the other table in my same file, create a new record, and then write out of the variables into those set field. And that way you have precision control. And if you change the name of the file, it doesn't break, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, just an alert. Don't ever use the archive data by accident, right? So that's one of those sort of things, right? So if you have a table in your same file that says archive data, so for it's okay. The question here's an interesting one here. I'm going to show you folks something I don't normally show, and I'm going to open up a FileMaker file here on my computer. And so if I go to FileMaker, and I'm going to go to Finished Goods. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time drilling around. This is my finished goods system over here. I'm going to move it partially off the screen because there's financial stuff over here I don't want to have to fuzz out. I don't care if you guys see it, but it goes into recording, and then all my competitors actually do dig into the videos and look at stuff. So if I go to contact right here, I'm going to pop this up. It takes it a second. And now it loads the information. This is a sample record right here. All these are, every time we send an email out, we have all these note fields down here, right? So if I go to home over here, and I go to the notes, wherever my notes are at, form, staff, preferences, subscriptions, where are my notes at? URL, note log right here. Right, check this out. So I have, how many records do I have in here? 9.5 million records in my notes table here. So at what point do we archive this? And if we were going to archive it, where would we archive it to? We archive it probably to a different file because I don't want it in the same file, right? So, Calvin, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say it's a child table, so it might not even have a button on the home screen. But yeah, this is one thing I was actually thinking about is that if we look at my record in there or your record, we get all the emails and all the notifications like anybody else who signed up for the live stream and such. And every once in a while, there's a more important note in there. So you could even hide all of the generic notes and maybe not archive them, but hide them using the same method, so that you really see the important ones.
The question is which are the important ones or not. You could filter those here, certainly. Obviously, this file is getting up to the point where it's, I don't know, 15 gigabytes or something like that. And it runs fine on the server. I don't have a burning desire to do this. I mean, if you look at the number of people that we're involved with that are buying our training or have been one way or another download starting point, something like that, 75,000 people, right? So it's, I wish I'd sold 75,000 copies of my training. That would be awesome. But yeah, it's a pretty good data set, and it can get a little squirrely if you start trying to do lots of totaling and things like that. But this is, once again, the idea, we take almost all the calculations out of here. There's no automatic calculations. There's no automatic sorts on portals and stuff like that. It just displays it without a lot of extra processing, which keeps it going. But the question is, when do you start deleting records? That's part of this kind of same conversation, right? So
Kim Bear does have a question about record locking so it can't be edited.
How about record locking so it can't be edited? Yeah, I mean, you can set up security so you can restrict access via security. If I go to manage and I go to, well, I mean, it'd be one that we do over here. Calvin, are you there? Are you back?
I'm back. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
It was just you. It's no big deal. Basically, Canberra says, how about where we do record locking so a record cannot be edited, right? So you basically have to go to a security privilege and restrict it that way, because an administrative privilege can always edit or delete a record, right? Generally. So,
right. Yeah, you can definitely handle it through security as far as limiting someone from deleting the record or forcing them to use the button that will archive the record. But in either case, we're talking about how we're going to archive it. So you could have it such that the person feels like they deleted it, but it's really hiding somewhere else. And obviously, we don't want them sneaking around in the background and deleting records. So we're going to limit their privileges so they only see the layouts we want them to see, and they can only delete the records we want them to delete.
Larry's asking the question, what about portals on a record being archived? So
yeah, so good question. The in this demo where I am archiving the contact, one thing that you'll want to make sure in doing this is that in the relationship graph, which this isn't a fancy relationship, we do not have delete records in this table via this relationship, because as soon as you delete that record that you archived, it would delete all the child records. In this case, once I restore it, all those child records are still kind of hanging there in limbo as orphans without a parent. But when you restore that record, because we didn't change the IDs and we made sure that the auto-enter calculations weren't running when we imported back, then all of those child records show up once again.
All right, so Michelle Gravel from Canada, Montreal, Canada, I believe, says, question, how do you disable the right-click? We kind of covered this. Maybe he missed it, but how do you disable the right-click on the mouse so the user cannot copy, delete records? So when we did the custom function, can you go
custom menu.
Custom menu. Can you go to that custom menu again? Notice that we'll go and activate it.
Yeah, so
you go to.
So right now we have delete record as an option.
Yeah.
And once we switch to our custom menu, no delete.
Right.
Delete is
it's gray there.
Grayed out in the toolbar.
Yep.
And here it's just gone.
So yeah, so notice that it's grayed. It was grayed here. That's a test certification test question, and then also if you right click, right, it's been removed here, right. So If you have something over here that you don't like in the right click, if you remove it, the general assumption is if you remove it out of here, it will remove it in other affected places like the menu bar. It doesn't remove it, just grays it out there, and then it removes it from the right click. So yeah, so upcoming broadcast, for those of you wondering about such amazing things where we're doing other broadcasty kind of things, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to minimize Discord briefly. I'm going to see if I can bring myself back up here. There I am. Welcome, everyone. And what we want to do is take a quick look at the upcoming broadcast schedule. So I go to fmtraining.tv. Once again, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule by pressing the live tab right there. Today was archiving records with Calvin. Then Thursday and Friday, 2 days of Kyle Williams. We're really hoping he keeps it basic. I'm afraid he's just going to have uncontrolled speed. I'm going to need to put Margaret, you're going to have to be able to put him in timeout, right? I'll be around to help, but might have to put Kyle in timeout if he goes too fast, right? So it's for beginners, not for...
Well, I'll just slow it down by asking all the stupid questions, because I know Jack didn't
Kyle,
really squiddle about JSON.
What are kitty cats soft and snuggly, right? And be like, at what? Right, we're going too fast. You have to ask them really dumb questions. Please support the training by purchasing one of our training bundles here. We greatly appreciate that. Several of you put together little promotional videos. We do greatly appreciate that as well. We do greatly like that. Ruben, anything else on your end? You've been very helpful. Appreciate it. Ken, helpful. Mark and Larry, thank you as well. Anything else, Ruben, before I hang up? Put the phone down, hang it up.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. You want to say anything motivational real quick before I hang up on people?
See you next time.
Oh, damn.
Roll credit.
I'm fixing up the. I'm fixing that import, so you won't have to.
Okay, we'll repost the new file
name
here shortly. Okay, we'll repost that. So give us an hour or so. Give it to Margaret when you're done. All right, thanks.
Will do.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but then he makes the grab.